I spent $60,000 in 10 years trying to give my father grandchildren before he died. Every doctor said it was impossible. I believed them. My wife comforted me through every failure. Then a stranger approached me in a coffee shop with an envelope. Inside were documents that proved everything I knew about my marriage was a lie. What my wife did wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated, methodical, and evil. My name is Daniel Cooper. I'm 42, work as a financial analyst at Meridian Capital in Houston. Steady job, decent paycheck, nothing glamorous but enough to build a life. My wife Lauren is 37, handles corporate events at Stratford Industries. We've been married 10 years. The first 5 were good. The last 5, I've been watching us slowly die. The real trouble started with kids, or the lack of them. My parents asked about grandchildren constantly. Every holiday, every phone call. Any news yet? Mom would say hopefully. Dad never pushed, but I saw the longing in his eyes. He wanted to pass something down before time ran out. Lauren always had excuses. After my promotion. Then, we need more savings. Then, my new project just launched. I tried everything. Bought gifts, planned romantic getaways, even painted our guest room yellow and assembled a crib. She called me obsessive and made me take it all down. After 2 years of begging, she finally agreed to try. I told my parents over dinner. Mom cried happy tears. Dad gripped my hand and said, "You'll be a wonderful father, son." 8 months later, nothing. We saw Dr. Catherine Stone, a fertility specialist downtown. She ran tests, brought us back for results, delivered the news with practiced sympathy. "Your chances are extremely low," Dr. Stone said. "Hormonal incompatibilities, structural issues. Without extensive intervention, natural pregnancy is unlikely." Lauren squeezed my hand, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry." I believed her completely. We saw 3 more specialists over the next year. Dallas, Austin, California. Everyone said the same thing, with different medical terms. We couldn't have children together. The door was closing, maybe already shut. I spent $60,000 chasing a miracle. Drained our savings, borrowed against my retirement. Lauren supported me through it all, held me when I broke down, told me we'd find another path. My father died 3 years ago. Heart attack at 68. His last words to me were, "I know you'll be a great dad someday. I just wish I could meet your kids." I lied and told him it would happen soon. He believed me and passed 2 hours later. Mom withdrew after that. Stopped hosting dinners, barely called. I knew she blamed herself for pushing us about grandchildren. A year after Dad died, Lauren brought home a golden retriever puppy named Bailey. "We need joy in this house," she said brightly. I looked at that dog and understood. This was the replacement. This was what I got instead of the family I dreamed about. But I smiled, petted Bailey, and pretended it filled the emptiness. That's when Lauren changed jobs. Took a position at Henderson Global Solutions as executive assistant to Philip Henderson, VP of Strategic Development. She was excited, energized, talked constantly about opportunities and networking. I encouraged her, supported her completely. I didn't know I was watching her build the exit ramp out of our marriage. The Henderson Global Solutions annual gala was held at the Riverside Hotel downtown. Black tie, open bar, everyone who mattered in Houston's corporate scene. Lauren had been talking about it for weeks, getting her hair done, buying a new dress, a sleek emerald number that cost more than my monthly car payment. "You need to network tonight," she told me in the car. "Actually talk to people. Don't just stand there like furniture." I adjusted my tie and nodded. Tried to remember when she'd started talking to me, like I was an employee instead of her husband. The ballroom was massive, chandeliers glittering overhead, string quartet in the corner, champagne towers reflecting light like crystal monuments to excess. Lauren's hand rested on my arm as we walked in, but the moment Philip Henderson appeared across the room, something shifted. Her grip loosened. Her attention drifted. "I should go say hello," she said, already moving away. I followed at a distance, watched her slide her hand onto Philip's arm like it belonged there. He was tall, early 50s, silver at the temples, the kind of confident that comes from never hearing the word no. He glanced at me once, dismissively, like I was the valet who'd parked his car wrong. Then back to Lauren, always back to Lauren. She laughed at something he said, touched his chest. Her hand lingered. When they unveiled the champagne tower, she dragged him over like a kid at a science fair. He leaned close, whispered something. She laughed again, that high flirtatious sound that used to be just for me. I stood 10 feet away, invisible. Could you grab me a sparkling water? Lauren said over her shoulder as she passed me the third time. Didn't even look at me. Just tossed the request like I was staff. I got the water. She never came back for it. Then it got worse. She turned, looked straight at me, then tilted her head toward Philip and said something with a smirk. He laughed. Not polite, not corporate, a real guttural laugh. Whatever she'd said was about me. That's when I felt the hand on my arm. Delicate, steady, unapologetic. Let's give them something to talk about. I turned. Eleanor Henderson stood beside me, Philip's wife. Mid-40s, composed, eyes cool and assessing. A woman who'd seen things and learned never to flinch. She didn't wait for permission, just linked her arm with mine and guided me toward the exit like she was leading me out of a burning building. As we passed the dance floor, I heard it. That split-second silence. The gap in Lauren's laughter. The sharp inhale before panic. She saw us. Saw Eleanor. Saw me walking away with Philip's wife while she stood frozen beside him. The look on her face was pure terror. Eleanor kept walking, heels clicking on marble, calm and deliberate. We stepped outside into the cool night air. Valets moved around us. She stopped beside a black Mercedes, turned to me with an unreadable expression. I'm not stupid, Eleanor said quietly. No anger, just fact. I've seen the texts. He forgets to delete them. Or maybe he thinks I won't check. She pulled out her phone, tapped it once. Want to guess the name on the hotel receipt from Chicago last month? I exhaled slowly. My hands had finally stopped shaking. I want precision, Eleanor continued. Not revenge. Precision. She handed me her phone. We exchanged numbers like professionals closing a deal. Start checking billing statements, she said before getting in her car. Look for her middle name. That's what she uses when she wants to look discreet. The door closed. The engine purred. She drove away like she hadn't just redrawn the battle lines of our lives. I stood there in the garage, phone in hand. The contact she'd left herself under. Lauren's HR nightmare. And below it, a note. Trust dies in silence. So does reputation. We weren't in love. We weren't friends. We were co-architects of a correction they'd never see coming. I didn't sleep that night. While Lauren snored upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, coffee growing cold beside me, pulling apart our financial life thread by thread. Eleanor had given me the key, Lauren's middle name. Elaine. I started with the airline account. We'd always pooled miles, seemed practical. But when I checked the booking history, something jumped out. A first-class ticket to Atlanta 4 months ago. Lauren had told me she was flying coach to Denver for a conference. Even sent me a gate photo. But this wasn't Denver. This was Atlanta, booked under Elaine Cooper. Non-refundable. $1,700 on my miles. I cross-referenced dates with my calendar. That weekend, Lauren said she was working late on a project proposal. Couldn't make my company dinner. Too much pressure, she claimed. Next, I pulled credit card statements. Most charges were normal. Groceries, gas, her gym membership. Then I found it buried in March, a floor's charge. $163 to pedals and stems downtown. I called them the next morning from my car during lunch break. Hi. I need to confirm a delivery for March 14th, I said, keeping my voice steady. Charged to my card, but I can't remember the recipient. The woman on the phone clicked through her system. Yes, sir. Delivered to Philip Henderson at Henderson Global Solutions. The card read, Thank you for an unforgettable weekend. I muted the phone so she wouldn't hear my breath catch. Thank you, I managed. Just needed to verify. I hung up and stared at the dashboard. She'd sent flowers to another man. Used my money. My credit card. Signed it with her middle initial like that made it invisible. That night, I started a spreadsheet. Dates, charges, locations, discrepancies. Every anomaly got documented. Every lie cataloged. Eleanor texted me screenshots daily. Hotel charges labeled as conference expenses, but booked for 2 guests. Dinner reservations at romantic restaurants during supposed business meetings. Calendar invites with vague titles that didn't match company records. I added everything to the file. We weren't gathering gossip. We were building a case. One evening, I found something particularly damning. A donation receipt from an art gallery. $500 from Mr. and Mrs. Henderson. Except I'd never donated to that gallery. Lauren hated modern art, called it pretentious. I looked up the gallery's donor event from that month. Found photos on their website. There in the background, clear as day, stood Lauren wearing the necklace I bought her for our 5th anniversary. Her hand rested on Philip's back. They looked like a couple. I sent it to Eleanor without comment. She replied immediately. Add it to the evidence folder. We moved soon. I was done being the man who stood quietly in corners. Done being furniture. I was becoming something they hadn't counted on. Methodical, patient, and absolutely unforgiving. Sunday morning, Lauren sat on the couch in silk pajamas, scrolling her phone with her coffee, the picture of casual contentment. Bailey slept at her feet. Sunlight poured through the windows she'd insisted we install last year for better Instagram lighting. I watched her from the kitchen, pretending to read the paper, thinking about all the lies that had lived in this room. Try not to embarrass me at the next company event, she said without looking up. I folded the paper slowly. Wouldn't want to interrupt your networking. She rolled her eyes. Don't start. I didn't. Because while she sat there smug and comfortable, I'd already separated our bank accounts, moved funds, removed her access to our mortgage portal. The cabin we'd bought in the mountains, the one she'd claimed was our escape, but never visited without her phone glued to her hand, was now in a trust. My trust. She got up, stretched, wandered toward the kitchen. Are you still upset about the gala? Her voice was fake casual. It was just work stuff. You were being weird. People noticed. I'll work on being more present, I said evenly. She looked at me for a moment, maybe sensing something had shifted, then shook it off. Went to the fridge. I might do a live stream tonight, she said. Got tons of DMs after that photo from the gala. Philip looked great in his suit. Philip, not Mr. Chambers. Not my boss. Just Philip, like they were old friends, intimate friends. I'm sure he'll appreciate the exposure, I said flatly. Don't be petty, she dismissed. That afternoon, she tried logging into our joint savings. Frowned at her laptop. Tried again. Hey, what's the login for the savings account? She called out. Try it and see. She looked up sharply. Did you change it? I didn't answer. Just sipped my coffee and watched her process that she no longer had access. Wow. Okay. Paranoid much. She laughed, but it sounded forced. I'm taking the car this week, I said, changing subject. Got meetings out of town. Where? The cabin. She blinked. Our cabin. It's not really ours anymore. She stared, waiting for more. I gave her nothing. Let her sit with that uncertainty. Let her wonder what else had changed while she'd been busy building her new life with Philip. That evening, Eleanor sent me a message. HR complaint filed. Preliminary concerns regarding workplace conduct. It's starting. An hour later, another message arrived. An anonymous compliance tip had been submitted. Relationship between team lead and subordinate, possibly influencing bonus structures and travel expenses. No names. Just enough data to force an investigation. By Monday morning, the system was stirring. Lauren got called into a closed-door meeting. 2 HR reps, 1 from compliance. No warning, no time to prepare. She came home early, slammed the door. Heels hitting hardwood like accusations. They're overreacting, she muttered, dropping her bag. HR is such a joke. Someone reported a pattern. What does that even mean? I'm suddenly under review for conflict of interest. I looked up from my laptop. Interesting. She narrowed her eyes. Why do you sound smug? Do I? Did you say something to them? Her voice rose. To anyone? To whom? I asked calmly. She couldn't answer. Just stared, trying to figure out if I was the threat or if she was paranoid. The truth was simpler than she realized. I didn't need to be the threat. I just removed myself from being her shield. The message came through Facebook on a Wednesday morning. From someone named Emily Richardson. The profile picture showed a young woman in scrubs, maybe late 20s. Mr. Cooper, we met briefly at a coffee shop last year. I worked at Dr. Stone's clinic. I need to talk to you. It's important. Please. I stared at the message, trying to remember. Then it clicked. The nervous woman who'd recognized me, gone pale, practically ran out of the cafe. I thought it was strange, but didn't follow up. I messaged back. When and where? We met that afternoon at a park near the medical center. Emily sat on a bench, hands twisting in her lap. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. I can't do this anymore, she said before I even sat down. What she did to you? It's been eating at me for 2 years. What who did? I asked, though something in my gut already knew. Your wife, Emily said, voice breaking. She paid Dr. Stone. Paid her $15,000 to tell you that you couldn't have children. I processed the payment. Saw the whole thing. The world tilted. What are you saying? There was nothing wrong with either of you. Emily continued, words tumbling out fast like she'd been holding them in too long. Your test results were completely normal. Healthy. But your wife came to Dr. Stone privately, asked her to lie in the consultation. Said she needed you to believe it was impossible. I couldn't breathe. Why would she do that? Emily pulled out her phone. Show me photos. Copies of medical documents. My real test results. Lauren's. Both marked normal, healthy, excellent reproductive potential. She didn't want children with you, Emily whispered. She told Dr. Stone she had other plans for her life. That kids would tie her down to a marriage she wanted to leave. I took the phone with shaking hands, stared at the documents that proved I'd been lied to for years. That my father died believing I couldn't give him grandchildren. That $60,000 of my money went to support an elaborate fraud. Why are you telling me now? I managed. Because I saw what happened at Henderson Global, Emily said. The investigation. Your wife's name in the news. I realize she's not a victim. She's calculated. And what she did to you, to your family, it needs to come out. She handed me a USB drive. Everything's on here. Original test results, payment records, even an email where she thanked Dr. Stone for the discretion. I made copies before I quit. I couldn't keep working there after what I saw. I closed my fist around the drive. Will you testify if needed? Emily nodded. I will. Dr. Stone should lose her license for what she did, and your wife should face consequences for fraud. After she left, I sat on that bench for an hour, trying to process what I'd learned. Lauren hadn't just cheated on me with Philip. She'd orchestrated an elaborate con to prevent me from having the family I dreamed about. She let my father die without grandchildren when there was no reason we couldn't have them. That evening, I uploaded everything to the encrypted folder Eleanor and I shared. Added a note. Medical fraud. Payment records included. She stole more than money. Eleanor called me 10 minutes later. Daniel, this changes everything. This isn't just an affair or workplace misconduct anymore. This is criminal fraud, emotional abuse, financial theft. We can destroy her completely. Good, I said, and meant it. I was done being the understanding husband. Done protecting someone who'd spent years systematically dismantling my life while smiling to my face. Lauren had wanted to erase me quietly. Now I'd erase her thoroughly. The email arrived at 6 a.m. Thursday. Lauren's phone buzzed on the nightstand, waking both of us. She grabbed it, read the screen, and went rigid. What is it? I asked, feigning sleepiness. Nothing, she said too quickly. Work stuff. But I saw her hands trembling as she typed a response. Whatever the message said, it had rattled her badly. She left for work without breakfast, without her usual routine, practically ran out the door. I gave her 10 minutes, then checked the tracking software I'd installed on her shared tablet, the one she sometimes used for email when her phone died. The email was from Henderson Global HR. Required attendance. Ethics review meeting, Friday 9 a.m. legal counsel permitted. I forwarded it to Eleanor with a simple message. She's panicking. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Male voice, professional, clipped. Mr. Cooper, my name is James Thornton. I'm an attorney representing Eleanor Henderson. She'd like to meet with you this evening to discuss strategy. Are you available? I met them at Thornton's office downtown. Sleek, modern, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Eleanor sat at a conference table with Thornton and another woman introduced as Patricia Kane, a private investigator. We have everything we need, Eleanor said without preamble. The affair, the financial misconduct, the medical fraud. But I want to make sure we're aligned on objectives. Thornton slid a document across the table. This is a proposed settlement structure. Philip will resign quietly, take a reduced severance package, and sign an NDA. In exchange, we don't file a lawsuit that would destroy his reputation permanently. And Lauren? I asked. No deal for her, Eleanor said coldly. She's not my husband. I don't know her mercy. She gets fired, investigated, and if the evidence supports it, prosecuted for fraud. Patricia Kane opened a laptop. I've traced additional financial irregularities. Your wife diverted over $30,000 from joint accounts and investments over the past 2 years. Small amounts, carefully spaced. She was building an exit fund. The number hit me like a physical blow. 30,000. Cryptocurrency accounts, offshore transfers through a friend's business, cash withdrawals she claimed were for household expenses. Patricia explained. She was planning to leave you. She just wanted to make sure she was financially secure first. I thought about the nursery I'd painted, the crib I'd assembled, the dreams I buried, all while she was systematically stealing from me to fund her escape. What do you need from me? I asked Thornton. Testimony, documentation, your consent to pursue full legal action, Thornton replied. This goes beyond hurt feelings. She committed fraud, theft, conspiracy. If you're willing to press charges, we can make sure she faces real consequences. I didn't hesitate. I'm willing. Eleanor smiled. It wasn't warm or kind. It was the smile of someone who'd spent years swallowing humiliation and was finally ready to spit it back out. Then let's finish this, she said. That night, I went home to an empty house. Lauren was still at work, or with Philip, or wherever she went when she pretended she had late meetings. I walked through the rooms we'd shared for 10 years, saw all the places where we'd built a life together. Except we hadn't. I'd been building. She'd been planning her exit. I thought about my father's last words, about my mother's fading hope, about the $60,000 spent on fake fertility treatments, about the $30,000 stolen for her escape fund. And I felt something shift in me. Not anger anymore. Something colder, clearer. Purpose. The email arrived Tuesday morning while Lauren was still asleep. I was already up, coffee in hand, when my phone buzzed. The subject line made me smile. You're cordially invited. It was an invitation to the renewal of vows ceremony for Philip and Eleanor Henderson. Elegant design, gold lettering on cream background. The message read, we're thrilled to celebrate the continued partnership, both professional and personal, between Philip and Eleanor Henderson. Your support over the years has meant everything. The guest list included departmental heads, partners, senior staff, everyone who mattered at Henderson Global. Everyone except Lauren. I forwarded it to Eleanor with a simple message. Nicely done. She replied immediately. Watch what happens when she sees it. At 8, Lauren's phone chimed. I heard her gasp from the bedroom, then footsteps rushing down the stairs. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, holding her phone like it had bitten her. This has to be a mistake, she said, voice tight. An oversight. What is? I asked, pouring another coffee. Philip and Eleanor are renewing their vows. There's a company-wide invitation, but I'm not on the list. I work directly with Philip. This doesn't make sense. Maybe the list didn't update, I suggested mildly. Her phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen and went pale. What now? I asked, though I already knew. My access to the strategic planning folder just got suspended. Her voice rose. And my calendar permissions. Someone's removing me from everything. She tried logging into her work systems. Access denied. Access denied. Access denied. I watched her unravel. Phone in one hand, laptop in the other, frantically trying to find a digital foothold that no longer existed. They're pushing me out, she whispered. This is retaliation. For what? I asked innocently. She didn't answer, just stared at her screens, watching her professional world evaporate one notification at a time. Her phone rang. She answered without checking. Hello. I could hear the male voice on the other end. Couldn't make out words, but I saw Lauren's expression shift from panic to devastation. No, I understand, she said quietly. Yes, I'll be there. She hung up, stood motionless for a long moment. What was that? I asked. HR wants to see me. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Her hands trembled. They said to bring documentation of all my project work for the past 18 months. I nodded slowly. Sounds thorough. She looked at me, then really looked like she was trying to see through me to whatever machinery was turning beneath the surface. Did you do something? She asked. Did you talk to someone? I met her eyes steadily. I'm just your husband, Lauren. I don't have that kind of influence. But we both knew that wasn't quite true anymore. That evening, she tried calling Philip. Voicemail. Texted him. No response. Sent an email marked urgent. Nothing. She was being erased, professionally and personally, and she couldn't figure out who was holding the eraser. I went to bed early, left her sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop, desperately trying to document her work, to build a defense for a trial she didn't understand. Before I turned off the light, Eleanor sent one final message. Tomorrow she learns the truth. Are you ready? I typed back. I've been ready for years. Wednesday morning, Lauren dressed in her best navy suit, the one she wore for important presentations. She checked her makeup 3 times, practiced her breathing, tried to armor herself for whatever was coming. Good luck, I told her at the door. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, then just nodded and left. I didn't go to work. Called in sick, stayed home, waited. The call came at 10:15. Eleanor's number. It's done, she said simply. Security walked her out 15 minutes ago. Single envelope. Access revoked. No severance negotiation. And Philip resigned this morning. Took a reduced package. Signed the NDA. He's saving himself at her expense. Eleanor's voice held grim satisfaction. She's got nothing. No job. No references. No protection. An hour later, I was in the garage when I heard her car pull into the driveway. The engine shut off, but the door didn't open for several minutes. When Lauren finally came inside, she looked like someone had physically struck her. She walked past me without a word, went straight to the bedroom. I heard the door close, then silence. At 2 p.m., her father called. I could hear his voice through the ceiling, raised and angry. Lauren's responses were quiet, defensive. The call lasted 10 minutes. When it ended, I heard her crying. I went upstairs, knocked on the door. Lauren, go away. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Her voice broke. I lost my job. My career is over. Happy now. I opened the door. She was sitting on the bed, still in her suit, mascara streaked down her face. Why didn't you fight? I asked. Why just walk away? She laughed bitterly. Fight with what? They had documentation, Daniel. Records of every dinner, every trip, every expense that looked questionable. Someone built a case against me like I was a criminal. Were you? I asked quietly. She looked up sharply. What? A criminal? I continued, stepping into the room. Because the evidence suggests fraud. Medical fraud specifically. 10 years worth. Her face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about. Dr. Stone, I said. The $15,000 you paid her to lie about our fertility results. The nurse who kept copies of everything. The real test results that show we were both completely healthy. Lauren stood abruptly. That's not. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I cut her off. You destroyed my dream of having children. Let my father die, believing I couldn't give him grandchildren. Stole $60,000 for fake treatments. Also, you could build a life with Philip without complications. Daniel. My father's last words were about wanting to meet my kids. I continued, voice steady despite the rage beneath. You took that from him. From me. From my mother. For what? A man who just abandoned you to save himself. She sank back onto the bed, hands covering her face. Eleanor and I gave you Philip's wife and me, I said. We documented everything. The affair, the financial theft, the medical fraud. You're not just unemployed, Lauren. You're facing criminal charges. Her head snapped up. Criminal charges? Fraud. Conspiracy. Theft. Take your pick. I pulled out my phone, showed her the legal complaint that had been filed that morning. Dr. Stone already lost her license. Now it's your turn. You did this, she whispered. You and Eleanor. We revealed what you did. I corrected. There's a difference. She stood, moved toward me, hands reaching. Daniel, please. We can fix this. We can work through. There's nothing to work through, I said, stepping back. I'm filing for divorce. The papers will be served tomorrow. You'll get nothing. The house isn't a trust you can't touch. The accounts are separated. You stole from me for years. Now you get to face consequences. Where am I supposed to go? Her voice rose hysterically. I have nothing. You should have thought about that before you built your exit strategy on lies and theft. I moved toward the door. I want you out by Friday. After that, deal with your lawyer. Daniel, wait. But I was already walking down the stairs, leaving her alone with the wreckage of the life she tried to steal. Outside, I sat in my car and called my mother. Hi, sweetheart, she answered, voice tired. Mom, I need to tell you something about Lauren and the fertility issues. I explained everything. The lies, the fraud, the stolen money. When I finished, there was long silence. You mean we could have had grandchildren? Mom finally whispered. Yes, I said. We can have. She cried then, and I cried with her, mourning what should have been. But underneath the grief was something else. Relief that the truth was finally out. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Lauren got nothing. No house, no savings, no alimony. The judge reviewed the evidence of fraud and theft, saw the medical records, the payment receipts, the stolen funds. He called her conduct reprehensible and awarded me everything. Dr. Stone lost her medical license permanently. The medical board investigation revealed she'd falsified reports for at least 6 other couples. Criminal charges were pending. Lauren faced trial for fraud in November. Her lawyer tried negotiating a plea deal. I refused. Eleanor refused. We wanted a jury to hear what she'd done. Philip disappeared from Houston, moved to Arizona, took a job with some startup at half his previous salary. His reputation was destroyed. No major firm would touch him after the scandal. Eleanor and I stayed in touch. Not friends exactly, but allies who'd fought the same battle. She'd send occasional updates about her life, rebuilding without Philip's shadow. My mother started calling more often. We talked about Dad, about the grandchildren that could have been. The grief was still there, but softer now, shared instead of buried. I sold a house. Too many ghosts, too many memories of lies. Bought a smaller place across town, something that was mine alone. Word promoted me to senior analyst. The team had seen what happened, respected how I'd handled it. Not with drama or rage, but with precision and patience. One evening, I ran into Emily, the nurse who'd exposed Lauren's fraud, at a coffee shop. She got a new job at a different clinic, one with better ethics. Thank you, I told her, for having the courage to tell the truth. She smiled sadly. Your father deserved better. You deserved better. We both got justice instead, I said. Sometimes that has to be enough. Lauren's trial started in November. I attended every day, sat in the back, watched her defense crumble under the weight of evidence. The jury deliberated 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison and ordered full restitution. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time. Not with anger or pleading, just empty recognition that she'd built her own cage. I walked out of that courthouse lighter than I'd felt in years. 10 months after the divorce, I was living a life I barely recognized. Smaller, quieter, but entirely mine. I'd reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the marriage. Started hiking on weekends, something I'd always wanted to do, but Lauren called boring. Joined a men's group at my church. Found community with other guys navigating life's complications. My mother moved closer, into a senior living community 15 minutes away. I visited twice a week, brought dinner, sat with her while she told stories about Dad. The grief hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something bearable. He'd be proud of you, Mom said one evening over pasta I'd brought from her favorite Italian place. Standing up for yourself like that, not letting her walk all over you. I wish I'd done it sooner, I admitted. You did it when you were ready, Mom replied gently. That's what matters. Work continued going well. The promotion came with better pay, more responsibilities. I was rebuilding my savings, putting money away for a future that now felt possible instead of stolen. Eleanor sent me a message in December. She'd met someone, a widower from her book club. They were taking things slow, but she was happy. You should try dating again, she wrote. Don't let her steal that from you too. I wasn't ready yet. Maybe someday. For now, I was content learning who I was without someone else's lies defining me. Lauren got out after serving 14 months. I heard through mutual contacts she'd moved to Dallas, working retail, living in a small apartment. Her parents had disowned her after the trial. She had nothing and no one. Part of me felt something about that. Not quite satisfaction, not quite pity. Maybe just acknowledgement that consequences had arrived, exactly as they should. I thought about my father sometimes, wondered what he'd say about everything that happened. I think he'd tell me that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who tell the truth, who stand beside you when things fall apart. I'd lost the family I thought I was building with Lauren, but I'd found something more valuable in the process. I'd found myself, and that was worth everything I'd had to destroy to get here.